So everyone's feeling it. The cost of living is insane. If you're just an average person trying to provide for your family, for yourself, or just to keep roof over your head, you have probably realized it's getting almost impossible to save any money. There used to be lower class, middle class, and upper class, but now it really feels there's just poor and rich. I don't even know if it's a good thing, because being poor, man, I've been there. It sucks. And it's like people have given up on saving money altogether. They're just surviving, letting life crumble apart slowly. Listen, I remember back in the day when I was door dashing just to put gas in my car on a near empty tank. That was one of the most broke moments in my life. But it was also a wake up call. Trying to become rich the honest way? It's hard. And these days, the system feels rigged unless you get creative or think outside of the box. The media won't teach you how to get really ahead. They don't want to. In 2024, over 65% of people live paycheck to paycheck. That's a lot. And it makes me wonder, is everyone okay? I come from a lower middle class family, and my dad made about 3 grand a month back in 2008. As a teenager, I thought it was a lot, but as an adult now, that doesn't even cover a modest lifestyle, especially with a family. 3 grand used to get you somewhere. Now you probably need around 5 to 6 grand a month just to live comfortably, and even then, just barely. I have seen people living in some truly rough conditions. I remember visiting a friend's family home once, and it really stuck with me. The place smelled heavily of smoke. There was barely any furniture, and the walls were so worn out, they literally had holes in them. It honestly felt more like an abandoned space than a home. I felt bad for them, of course, but at the same time, I couldn't help but wonder, how are they even able to live here? Eventually, I found out they were surviving entirely of SSI welfare. And while that explained the financial situation, it also made me realize how fragile the safety net can be. In some cases, it's enough to barely get by, but it's definitely not enough to thrive. What really shocked me though was how some people just give up. I met someone else, also living off government support, who spent all day playing Call of Duty and flat out refused to work. No ambition, no effort, just total resignation. And that's not just being broke, that's surrendering. And once you give up like that, it becomes almost impossible to climb out of poverty because you have mentally checked out before even trying. Growing up, I saw these patterns play out in my own family too. There was a lot of toxicity, constant cigarette smoking, and complete lack of financial planning. My parents weren't exactly broke all the time either. They had phases where they actually made some decent money. I remember back when rent was just $400 a month in a small town, and my mom was pulling in about $1,000 a week working at a barbecue joint. That's a solid income for the time. But the problem was they never saved a dime. It wasn't the money that wasn't there. It was that no one taught them how to handle it responsibly. Everything they earned was spent as quickly as it came in, mostly on bad habits and impulsive purchases. There was no budgeting, no financial goals, no emergency fund, just living paycheck to paycheck out of routine. Looking back, I realized that they had a real shot at building something better, but they just didn't know how, or didn't believe it mattered. My parents were basically boomers. They grew up in an era where the cost of living was low, wages were decent, and home ownership was actually within reach for the average working person. They had every opportunity to build a solid, stable life. They could have bought property when prices were still reasonable, invested in retirement accounts, or even started a small business without a massive startup cost. But they didn't. They didn't save, they didn't invest, they didn't think long term. Instead, they lived like the good times would never end. Any extra money they had went straight towards cigarettes, alcohol, new clothes, or some impulsive purchases they didn't need. There was no concept of putting something aside. No savings account, no emergency fund, no retirement plan. Just paycheck to paycheck living, even when these paychecks were big enough to do more. Looking back, it's hard not to see for what it really was. a massive missed opportunity. And what's wild is that I still see a lot of people making the same mistakes today. Instead of learning from past generations, many just fall into new versions of the same traps. They blindly follow trust dealerships and financing offers without doing the math. They sign off on insane interest rates just to drive a car that looks nice for Instagram. They get into long-term payment plans they don't fully understand, thinking only about the monthly cost, not the total cost. It's not just about being poor or rich, it's about not knowing better, and sometimes not even trying to know better. The truth is, if you don't learn how to manage your money, you will end up stuck, even if you're earning decent income. You will find yourself one emergency away from disaster, and when the good times dry up, and they always do, you'll wish you had something saved. That's why it matters. Saving even a little bit of money isn't just responsible, it's protection, it's freedom, it's having the power to say no to a toxic job, to move out of bad living situation, to take chance on something bigger. It's the difference between barely surviving and actually building something that lasts. Because once you hit rock bottom, it's not just about climbing out. It's about wishing you have never fallen that deep to begin with. And saving, even a little at the time, is how you avoid ending up in a deep shit later on.